can't pretend. And in my head I'm running circles again. And I'm faking it, I can't pretend. I've been spending too much time on the edge. Done faking it, I can't pretend. I'm just being honest, I got you here. You just ride the wave till you disappear. Unrequited love, I can't take it. Kill me more than once, leave a trail of tears. Do this often, I think we lost it. I need a break. You're the monster inside my closet, scare me away. Everybody goes through it, we don't ever come out the same. Cause you never change. You my little psycho, kiss me in the night glow. Easy to imagine when you always have your eyes closed. We'll be going crazy if you know what I know. Where did all the happy memories go?
Welcome to the State of the HCS. We're going to be interviewing Tashi about all things in the Halo experience right now. Obviously, there's some big news that launched today about a brand new game mode that's going to be coming to Halo, potentially to Ranked, maybe to the HCS. We'll figure that out here today. But as a primer before we get into this interview, I want to explain how this process is going to work. We're going to have three main sections. The first is going to be talking about Seek and Deploy Extraction, the newest game mode that's coming to Halo. Tashi will unveil what he knows now and what we can expect in the future. After that, let's take a status look at what the ranked experience looks like in Halo, what the new maps, what the new game modes are like, and what we can expect in the future for the ranked experience. And finally, we'll end with the HCS season, all the questions that we have about the competition within Halo. Within these three sections, we'll take a quick interim break to make sure everyone gets well rested and ready for that next segment. With that being said, I'm very excited to introduce what I consider the commissioner, in my words, Tashi. Welcome to the show, and I'm excited, man. First of all, congratulations on the new launch of Seek and Deploy. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. And we haven't launched it yet, so your congratulations are appreciated, but maybe a little early. We still need to finish the mode, and hopefully players love it when they actually play it. But yeah, we're pumped.
Honestly, it's something that's completely new to Halo Infinite. I think a lot of players are excited to get their hands on it. Can you walk through what the process was on establishing this game mode once again? Well, I don't want to say once again, but the single life game mode we saw experimented a little bit in Halo 5, but definitely wasn't something that we've seen in Halo Infinite yet.
Yeah, I think it's always been like kicked around and talked about at the studio. I'm sure before I joined Halo and conversations that I'd not even been part of, it's just always been like, I wonder how this mode would work in Halo. And I think a couple of years ago, I just put together just some more thinking around it. And this is when we were starting to bring extraction to Halo Infinite. And it kind of just clicked on like, oh, maybe this is built, off of extraction instead of assault, which should, is kind of the obvious choice, because if you look at whatever search and destroy, Counter-Strike, there's like a bomb object. But that was always, we always felt like that didn't quite work out because of Halo's time to kill and the shields. Like if you end up killing the bomb guy, then it's just everyone swarms the bomb location and it's kind of done. So there were just some initial thoughts of like, hey, maybe this could work with extraction. Then it just got put on the shelf for a while. And then, it was an opportunity for the ranked team to, dive in and start building out new content and whatnot. And so, yeah, we just brought this design back and been closely partnered with L-Town and Clutch on figuring out all the details and fleshing out the full design. And, what should the maps be like? How should they play? How are they different from other games? How are they different from like Halo Arena maps? All the details of the mode and economy system. And, from there, from a process standpoint, we got recommendations internally on which forgers, we should work with and consider and hire. And, we landed on Artifice and Micryps, and they've been absolutely incredible to work with. And, we've just been kind of jamming on it. So it's just been in like block out for a while. We just started putting art on the map, so it's like very early. But it's been coming together. I mean, the first playtest, I distinctly remember us already starting to talk about the strategy of like how we were going to approach each round and what weapons we were going to consider buying and, where we're going to push. And we were like already like playing the mode and not like figuring out if it's going to be fun. Oh, what's broken about it? What's not broken? It's like, oh crap, we kind of have something here. So we've just been kind of iterating on it. And, we also at the same time were wanting to partner and been talking to Forge Hub for a little bit about how can we work together and do some contests together. And this just kind of lined up perfectly. So, we announced it all today and hopefully people are excited. It's going to be a little ways away from when folks go hands-on, but we're excited to show more over the coming months and eventually release it later this year.
Well, the partnership with Forge Hub is really exciting. Something that I think a lot of people weren't really expecting to see, like a big competition. $10,000 from Halo Studios and then $10,000 from Forge Hub for a $20,000 prize pool. Can you talk about the process of making this contest a reality and sort of why you decided to go down this contest route to get more maps for the playlist?
Yeah, we had done contests in the past, and they'd always been successful. So I was part of running like the Halo 5 API contest. Also, if you remember, like the Ghost in the Shell Forge contest in Halo 5. So we'd always done this, but we hadn't done it for Infinite yet. And, Forge Hub has just done such a great job running these competitions and building like and fostering like a real community around not only forgers, but people who like to play kind of Forge content and help give feedback and things like that. So they had this like kind of already built-in community and well-oiled plan. And, Warholic, who's running there, is, I've known him for so long, like almost a decade now or more. So we just had some good conversations and they were super down and into it. And, we were like, hey, we're going to contribute, the pricing for this. We're going to put in 10,000. And he's like, oh, we'll double it and make it 20,000. It's like, holy cow, dude. Like, awesome. Thank you. Like, so, big shout out to that whole team and Warholic. Like, they just do and have done for such a long time, like amazing stuff with Forge Hub and really around the Forge tool and the whole community. So yeah, that's how it all came to be.
Going back and looking at this contest so far, I think a lot of people are wondering what the expectations should be for those that win the competition. Is it going to be a 1-to-1, like first to fifth place gets their map into the game? Or is there a little bit more nuance as to how the maps will be selected to be into the matchmaking system?
There's definitely more nuance. I would not expect, one to one. Once a map is kind of selected, where we say, okay, we have the intention of like bringing this into matchmaking, we wanna. It goes through a pretty rigorous like internal testing process with our QA team, and a lot of times there are bugs that are found that have to like change the way the map is made, or even sometimes bugs that like can't quite be repaired. So we didn't want to make any promises, and we don't make any promises today that the winners are just going to like get in. There's a lot of time and process. Like once a map is selected, there's going to be more time for fixing bugs and iterating and polish and things like that. And so yeah, we can't make any promises. Obviously, the intention is that when the S&D extraction playlist comes out, there's a bunch of maps and not just one. So that's the hope, but we'll have to wait and see. Again, there's no guarantees. There's a world where maybe like first and third get in, but second place map has some issues that couldn't get it. Like who knows? So we're not there yet. We're just trying to have a great competition and build excitement for the mode.
Well, when we were looking at the map that was featured in the trailer that's to come, couldn't help but notice that there was some very interesting vibes, some Halo 3 vibes. It felt sort of like a pit remux to an extent. Is the competition like, is there that sort of theming throughout the competition where they should be making it more like a remux of different maps from Halo's past?
I'm glad you noticed that. Yeah, that was very intentional, and that is part of the rules for the competition. Is that they should be inspired by Halo 3 and those famous Halo 3 maps. You'll notice the map that we showed in the video is not a direct one-to-one remake of the pit. There are a lot of major differences, but it kind of has some similar vibes, similar color themes, kind of set within the same universe. So I would say there's some kind of direction that we have in the contest, but we don't want to be overly prescriptive. If someone decides they want to, be inspired by Narrows, they should be very creative in thinking about how they can interpret kind of Narrows, right? Narrows has a lot of elements. It's not just like a bridge, a Forerunner bridge. Maybe your map has a bridge, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it has the big waterfall, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's nighttime instead of daytime, or in the sunset. Like, forgers should be creative and think about how much they can explore in the universe of these Halo 3 maps, and not just try to remake them one to one.
Well, I will say, whoever makes the Epitaph remake, let me know. I want to play it right away.
Were you an Epitaph fan?
I love the artwork of Epitaph. I say,
okay,
the
is
gameplay
beautiful.
itself. We can talk about that a different time.
You've redeemed yourself.
The Epitaph artwork is awesome, and
it is.
I'm very excited to see what the community has cooked up. But I think a large part of the equation for a lot of people is getting an eye sort of look at how this is supposed to play, whether that might impact how those design elements go into the game. So when can players start to expect to play around with the game mode to get a better sense of what they're forging with?
Yeah, so the first opportunity is going to be for our pros who are in attendance at the Kason Invitational. So we'll have some hands-on time with them there, but also there's going to be the show match. I think that's where we'll get a first big taste at both from a player's perspective at a high level, but also from a viewer's perspective, how people are really kind of enjoying the mode. So I'm certain we're going to learn a lot there. And then we're talking about, but don't have any confirmed plans yet, to have it playable at, our majors. So we're thinking right now it'd be really cool if, at the Optic major, fans can go hands on and play and give feedback and whatever it might be. So we're talking about it. Nothing confirmed just yet. But we definitely want it to be kind of out there for people to try and have those opportunities, kind of similar to how we did like 1v1 showdown last year. Like if you were at the SSG major, you got to play and kind of be part of that process. So we want to have kind of similar elements there, and maybe, who knows, maybe some of the Forge maps in the competition, maybe some of their maps can be played and you can give feedback, and in the middle of the contest. I think things like that would be really cool. And I think forgers are always looking for people to play test their feedback and give feedback. So yeah, nothing really set in stone, open to ideas of where it could be playable and how. We have some ideas.
Speaking of the other playlists that we've seen, right, the 1v1 showdown, that was also a playlist that had a workshop period within the matchmaking system. Is that sort of the plan going forward, is to like sort of soft launch it, or should we expect it like when it comes out to be immediately playable in like a ranked setting?
No, I think for this it'll be like fully playable in a ranked setting. The way the timing is kind of working out, what we don't want to do is, put up a workshop shortly before the playlist actually launches and not be able to like act on any of the feedback. So, I think, we might skip a workshop for this go around and just go straight to like the proper launch.
Love that. And, I think a lot of players are excited to get their hands on it. Do you have sort of like a time of year that we should expect to be able to play this in matchmaking right now?
I don't right
Nothing right
now.
now.
Nothing I can share today. We've just kind of said, later this year. So nothing more to share today, but I'm sure in the coming months we'll share a proper release date.
But you can get your first eyes on it during the Kson event. And I'm very excited about that, right? Pros playing on the map and playing on the game type, I should say, and then lots of opportunities throughout the major year, like you were saying. That being said,
Yeah.
right, pros being on the game mode, I think there's a big question for many at home is whether this is going to be an HCS game type, right? We know it's coming to matchmaking. Should we expect it in HCS pro play?
Right now, we haven't made a final decision. We are considering it. I'll say the mode wasn't built with the idea of going into HCS. We weren't like, okay, we need a new HCS mode. It was purely from like hey, what would be like a fun competitive mode to bring to Halo that hasn't been there before? Obviously, we're building it to have a really high competitive bar, and we want it to be really well balanced and meet a lot of those same standards that apply for HCS. But we didn't build it with that intention. But that said, we think there's high potential for this mode, just for fans to love it and for players to love it. So we are considering it. I think right now, just to like think out loud and share super transparently, the only way it would go in is if it replaced with like Game 5 Slayer. I
Mm.
don't think we would put it into like replace one of the objectives. I would say we as a team, but I think myself personally, are really protective over the way a series is constructed in competitive Halo. That was very intentional when HCS started, that we carried over the old kind of MLG format of, objective Slayer, objective Slayer. And, you know, even for me to consider something replacing like a Game 5 Slayer, which I think has been not entertaining, but Slayer is just like really important to Halo. It has to be such an obvious like win, like in our eyes. And we don't know yet. So we only just announced it. People have to play it. We have to see how it, works as a spectator. But I think it would be, if I could dream in an ideal scenario, it's like everyone loves it and it's like universal praise and people are like, yeah, replace Game 5 Slayer, and then we do it and it's like, oh, this is the best. So like things always don't plan out that or work out that way. So we'll see. We are considering it. But it's not like do or die for us. So we're not like, if it's just not working, then it's just not working. We're happy with the current rotation. We don't want to just like throw a bunch of game types into the rotation just for the sake of it. We've already added Assault, and we've added new map. So like we're feeling pretty good right now. We want to let the season kind of play out. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But it's a long-winded answer, but hopefully that answered it.
No, I mean, I think you make a great point where like I think it could slot into that game 5 really well. People always talk about the game 5 50-49 and like being able to replicate that hypeness. I think that's one way, right? Round 11, all the everything on the line. Let's get it going.
And we're seeing that in play tests, like the like excitement that this mode brings in other games. Like we're feeling it in this, where you have those 1v1s or those 2v1s and players clutch up and everyone on the comms is quiet, and then your teammate like gets the clutch and they go, yeah, like we're seeing that in the in our play test and feeling it. So obviously still a long way to go, but it kind of has a lot of those same feelings and emotions and moments that you see in other titles, and why the mode is like so popular and why we decided to kind of bring it to Halo. So
Yeah, I mean, could you speak a little bit about the playtesting period of this game mode and some of the iterations that it's kind of gone through and what you've seen has been a positive of it, and like how it's kind of changed from its inception to where it is now, and like potentially how it could change into the future?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we have the competitive insights team who are not only helping design, but also play test and give feedback. And we've been in close contact, obviously, with them. Like, we're essentially like one team. Like, if you combine both of those teams, we're like the ranked team. And then, of course, we work super closely with the forgers who are kind of building this out for us. So, yeah, the flow is kind of like when the mode first got stood up and the kind of first block out of the map, we just played it, and it wasn't like fully ready. The economy system wasn't fully working, and there wasn't also like side switching at the very beginning, so you had to load up, and like if you were on offense, you played offense the whole match, and then they switched teams, and then you played defense. And it wasn't until later that more of this functionality kind of came online, but we were able to pretty early on kind of play test things. And there were definitely certain assumptions that we made going into it that through playtest were kind of changed, right? We had, a ton of stuff in the economy that you could buy, and we had initial price for things. And I mean, we've changed it dozens of times now. We've kind of removed things from the economy that were just too powerful or disrupting gameplay in the wrong way, or players would only save and buy for one thing instead of buying multiple things, and it just like hurt the overall flow. So we made changes to the economy as we've gone. We've also just worked closely with Micrips on the map design, who's been just doing such an outstanding job. He totally gets not only like how to work in Forge, but also competitive Halo maps, as well as like tactical shooter maps. So he's done a really good job of just understanding, from the jump, like what these maps need to play like, and the distance between certain routes and how you need to enter and exit like a arm site. So he's just done a really great job, working with us on that. So we've made some changes on how the map plays, and how long it takes to get to a certain site. Certain routes have opened up. We've added certain jumps, how they work with equipment or whatnot. So I mean, competitive insights team is playing like almost every day, and they're just playing the heck out of this mode. And we've even once done like a semi-public play test where I was just like fiending to play. I think it was over the holiday break, and I reached out to some pros in the community that I knew could you know uh keep a mum's the word on it.
Keep a
And I'm
secret
not gonna,
in the
yeah,
pro
keep a
scene.
secret.
Oh wow.
And I know, and no, they haven't done it. They haven't said it, and I'm not going to say who they are. But it's got some good initial kind of positive response from them in the early days. So yeah, we've just been playing the heck out of it, kind of iterating on the economy, polishing bugs in the mode, and we still have some time to go, but feeling confident in the kind of final product that we'll get to.
I gotta say, Tashi, with how roster mania went this season and how much of an open secret every roster was, I feel like that was a daring endeavor trusting these pros. But I don't think anyone
It
saw
was
this
just
coming.
a couple of them, and
Keep them lock and key.
I've
We
been working with
gotta keep them private for sure.
I've been working with these pros for a long time now, 11 years. So I have a good sense of like who I could trust and who's maybe got loose lips. So I picked very carefully.
I love it. And I mean, you've had your own experience playtesting it. Was there like ever a moment where you were playtesting it where it's sort of like it's like an unlock for you where you're like, oh, this game mode is legit. This is gonna be coming. Like this is really, really fun. Like any
I was
specific
literally the
moment?
first playtest.
Really? Okay. Can you go on
Yeah,
a
it
little
was
bit more into
literally,
that?
yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier, but usually when you're playtesting like prototype modes internally, like especially ones where you're not 100% sure how it's going to work out, or it's just in such an early state that there's a lot of things that like don't quite work yet, you kind of have to put on what we call like your dev goggles, where it's like, hey, you're gonna have to like look past some of these ugly parts of the experience in this early stage. And it was like right away we just started talking about the economy and like, okay, I'm going to save this round, I'm going to buy the sniper next round, or okay, let's three people push A and one of us go distract to B. Like we just immediately started like playing the game instead of like fighting with the game's mechanics and like trying to find the fun. And for me that was like such an eye-opening moment of like, okay, we're still really far away, but like this experience has been like at least initially, like proven out. Like, does this mode work in Halo? Like the bets that we were taking about keeping the same shields and the time to kill, keeping the same movement, how the map was built, like we made bets and we just didn't know if it was going to work. And then we played, it was like, okay, it's going to work. There's a clear line of sight to this even getting better. So it was literally the first play test that I had played where I was like, okay, like we will get there. There's a lot of work to do and it's not finished yet, but it will get there.
Now, I mean, I don't know how closely you get to keep up with the competitive insights team or anything like that. But has there ever been like a moment where it's getting kind of like heated or like tournament sort of level sort of thing where people like is there like a rumor throughout the office where like, oh yeah, they're talking about that play they made on the map?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are very competitive, obviously. So there's always that rivalry that they have with each other. I will take a moment to give a shout out to L Town. He sent me a clip of this nasty 1v3 that he got in in one of the matches, and initially it was a 1v2 and then someone bought back and he killed him too, and I think he got the disarm, and it was insane. And we actually like presented it to the studio as part of a larger video of like, here's this crazy play that L Town got. So shout out to L Town. Yeah, it was a really nasty play.
That's a feature that I think a lot of people are kind of curious about, is that buyback feature, right? It's something that isn't something you normally see in like a tack shooter situation. Can you talk about like why you guys decided to add the buyback feature, how it's been playtesting, and why it's staying so far?
Yeah. So we knew coming in, and I've seen a lot of the conversation in the community about this too, around like, with Halo's time to kill and how the shields work. You're just not going to be able to like 1v2, 1v3. And that was taken into consideration from the start. And I don't think suddenly like we're going to have the same 1v2, 1v3 type fights that you'll see in like Counter-Strike, for example. But we started like thinking about different ways that we could mitigate this. And we made a decision pretty early on that we're like, hey, we're going to keep the shields and time to kill and whatnot. Like if you're a Halo Infinite player and you love Halo Infinite, like we want you to feel at home playing this mode. We don't want you to feel like you're playing a different game inside of Halo, Like sure, it's a different mode, but the game itself, the way the guns work and the shields and your movement, like that's the same. So that was like a really important kind of stake in the ground we put from the outset, which means we had to change the mode in certain ways to make sure that it could accommodate for what we felt like were going to be these problems. So there's a few different ways that we kind of tackled it. We didn't think there was like a one silver bullet that's just going to suddenly make it all work, but we decided to approach it from a bunch of different angles. So one is you start with a bandit, so there's not a situation where you don't have like a really strong utility weapon with you. We had considered like, hey, do we do like Magnum starts or something like that, but the Magnum in Halo Infinite's like pretty powerful. So early feedback, because we had talked about it, from Clutch and Elton, the guys that were like, the Magnum is not like it's not like the Magnum in Counter-Strike or something like that. So it doesn't fit that same kind of role. So we decided, okay, Bandit Star is the right play. So everyone, regardless of someone on the other team has better weapons or there's outnumbered, like you at least have a chance to fight and make outplay opponents and things like that. The other one was building it on extraction instead of assault, because we just foreseen that like this happens again. I'll just use Counter-Strike example since it's like the originator. If someone dies with a bomb, obviously the counter-terrorist side is going to watch the bomb just to make sure it's covered, but terrorists still have a chance to one tap and pick up the bomb and get it back. But we knew if that situation happened in Halo, it's very, very difficult, almost impossible to try to let's say 3v4, pick up a bomb, and now you're holding it and you can't shoot, so it's really like 2v4, bring it to an arm site, like that just wouldn't work. And so building it off extraction helped a ton because you don't have a bomb to carry. You don't have to like have one person who's designated to arming it or not. Anybody could just walk into the arm site and plant. So that kind of solved at least that element of it. And then this is where the buyback came in as well. So we thought, in a scenario where whatever, you have a cheap death or maybe there's a team kill or whatever, if you've got enough money, you can kind of buy back into the round and turn a 1v2 into a 2v2. And, maybe someone on their team dies and one of them buy back and it's a 2v2 again. And we thought it was just like a really kind of interesting potential way. And, shamelessly stolen from Dota 2. I'm a huge Dota fan, and the buyback mechanic is like a really prominent part of that game. And there's a huge risk reward. And it was kind of a bet that we took. We honestly weren't sure if it was going to like work or play well or anything, and it kind of just like fits pretty naturally. The spirit of it is not that you're buying back every round, but it's like an important part of the economy, and you can decide if you want to buy back in certain situations. So we fully expect there to be like really clutch buyback moments where, again, like a 1v1 turns into a 2v2 and then you suddenly win the round or whatever it might be. But we fully expect players to just like buy back, die instantly, and they're like, crap, I just wasted a ton of money and now I can't full buy for the next round. And it's like, those are kind of stories that have never really existed in Halo, like these kind of like moments and how players talk about the strategy of the game and how the commentators would talk about it. Like, this has never really like kind of existed in Halo. So it's exciting to see that it's like working out so far. And yeah, we're just excited to kind of bring it forward, and hopefully the fans love it too.
That is one thing that's so interesting, right? The buyback is like a completely new feature from a tax shooter standpoint, but this is like Halo that's starting to morph into a new game mode that's going to morph it into a tax shooter. What are some of the things that are in the game that like are going to harken back? Obviously, we've seen the economy system, but like one big thing, right? If you're playing CS2 or like Valorant, is like buying an op, dropping it on the ground for your teammate. Is that like are those like features that we can expect, like some of those classic features that we've seen from tax shooters come to seek and destroy S&D extraction? Or
seek and deploy.
Damn, I said it wrong. Tashi, I promised myself I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah, that's why you choked it there.
I know, right? Think about it too hard.
And shout out to Unishek. It was his idea for the because we were like, damn, I really want to call it S&D extraction, but we can't have it be search and destroy. And he was like, seek and deploy. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really good. So yeah, so I guess more specifically on your question, if you so you'll start with your bandit. Let's say you buy a secondary gun. You can, when you spawn, drop it as you normally do. Or when I should say, when you have control of your Spartan again after the buy phase, you can drop it as you normally do. But also, if let's say you have two guns and you buy a third, it will just like drop. So then once everyone's after the buy phase, your teammate can like pick it up. So yeah, that story is still in there. And then I think there are others that are pretty reminiscent of what you'd see in like tactical shooters. So we have the shroud screen. So you'll see a lot of that used in the same way as like smokes. The quantity won't be the same. And then the map design is pretty the map that we're working on is like a 3-lane map. There's an A site, there's a B site, there's mid, there's different routes to each, and kind of the length of each is, it's pretty similar. Like we're solving a lot of the same problems that those maps solve in terms of design. So the solutions are pretty similar. They're not exactly the same. Some of the sight lines are shorter versus longer, just because of our shield story and things like that. So there are definitely a few elements, like, we have the skewer right now in the economy, and that acts almost like an op where it's one shot kill. So, there's a lot of interesting factors, but also again, it's Halo Infinite, and you've got your, G sliding, and you've got grapple up to get up to certain perches. And, we're taking all of that into account when building the map. So, it plays like Halo Infinite, but you're obviously playing kind of a new mode. So it doesn't play like you're playing Counter-Strike or things like that. Like in some ways it's very familiar. And if you played Counter-Strike, you'll have a general understanding of like how to retake parts of the map and just things like that, and how the map kind of flow is. But if you never played Halo Infinite, the way the shields work, the way the guns work, the movement is all going to be kind of different to you. So it's meant to be, hey, I really like Halo Infinite. I like the way it feels. I like the way, I move around as a Spartan. But now this is like a totally new mode that I get to play in.
So far, I'm very excited for it. I'm really hoping I can get my hands on it when I go to one of these majors this year and start playing it. Is there anything that we haven't talked about S&D extraction wise that you want to put a focus on before we move on to our next segment?
I guess last thing I'll say is about the length of the contest. I'd seen some folks commenting on it being really short, at like 2.5 months. I would say, yeah, it's definitely less than what we were told was like the ideal amount of time. The thing that I'll say is like after the contest is over, we'll have some kind of final polish and iteration time. So
Mm.
to those looking to compete, like get it as far as you can. We're not expecting it to be 100% perfect. Obviously, you're competing against other people, so you know you will be judged against other people and their content and their maps. But there will be time to kind of polish and iterate things for those that are considered for matchmaking.
I'm hoping we see a new crop of forgers come in and give their hands on this, because it's a big competition, right? $20,000. Like, if you think you can design a map, do it, right? Like, get yourself involved. The other thing I would say is collaborate, right? With those forge things. It's like I think collaborations are so key for forge. So if you're thinking about potentially making your own map, make sure you check to see who else is interested. You know, that main prize can be split many ways.
Yes, and also, and this is shout out to Forge Hub and Warholic, but the pricing distribution is also it's pretty wide. I think if you're like in the top 8 or top 10, like you will get some money. So it's not like winner take all or anything like that. So even if you don't win, there's some pricing that you could take away. And then they also have this like community vote, which is really cool, which I think is like $1,500. So they have this whole voting system on Forge Hub. I encourage everyone in the chat to go sign up to Forge Hub and be part of that community and support them. Like, it's really cool kind of how they built out this whole portal for the forgers and all these contests and whatnot. So they're doing an awesome job, and the contest should be really cool to see how it all comes together.
And I'm gonna put this out right here, right now. If you put an LVT Easter egg in the map somewhere, we'll get you a free shirt. We'll do something for you.
Okay,
I just want to
cool.
see. I want to see a little LVT somewhere on those maps. You know what I say? Let's get it cooking, guys. We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna talk a little bit more about the ranked experience in Halo. We obviously had some new maps, some new game modes, how that's all been coming into play. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Feels a little too perfect how we are now. You think I throw a little caution, but I don't want this to change. Been waiting too long for a moment like this. Said that you won't leave, better off with me. The kind of feeling I can't explain. Like how it feels drenched in the moonlight. Like how it feels under the stars. A step out of bounds with our own plight. A push towards the peace in the hearts. If it rains down all on us, drown out the noise, and I'll trust the mirror, mirror on the wall. Is it fair to watch me fall? Broken up in pieces. Can you see me bleeding? Mirror, mirror, tell me please, if these broken memories are enough to break free. Will it fix us slowly? Each day I'm moving along with what fits best for. Taking me forward and back, it all I know still leads right through to the start of the end, where the past can't chase us. You should stay for a while, disregard all the miles. If it's you and I, will be okay. Like how it feels drenched in the moonlight. Like how it feels under the stars. A step out of bounds with our own plight. A push towards the peace in the hearts. If it rains down all on us, drown out the noise, and I'll trust the mirror, mirror on the wall. Is it fair to watch watch me fall, broken up in pieces. Can you see me bleeding?
Welcome back. We just got done talking about the newest game type in Halo Infinite, S&D Extraction. But we want to focus a little bit more about what's happening currently in the ranked playlist experience. Tashi joining me once again. And Tashi, been a big couple months for you guys. A lot of new things coming to the ranked experience in Halo. First of all, I mean, the new maps, right? We have Origin and Fortress that have been added. How has that been from your guys' perspective, the launch of those, and how's the feedback been?
Honestly, great. I mean, I think we're just glad to kind of finally get them to matchmaking. We had shown them a bit early. I think last summer they were playable at like the London event, and it took a bit of time to finalize them and get them in. And working with those forgers has been just really great. But yeah, it's been great to get kind of new community forge maps, and obviously Origin's a remake of Coliseum, but it's a beloved map. For me personally, it's my favorite Halo 5 map. And that seems to be playing really well. And same with Fortress. So Fortress being an original design from Micryps, and I think we just removed it for Slayer. We're just not getting great feedback on that. And but for CTF and Assault, seems to be playing pretty well. So yeah, we're overall happy and glad to be getting more maps into the playlist and to HCS as well.
I mean, you mentioned it, right? Assault being added as well, a map that played on Fortress. So we have two that are in the range playlist with both Aquarius and Fortress. What I find so interesting about them is they play so radically different. But so far with this neutral bomb being added to the playlist, like what's the feedback been for you guys? And can we expect like potentially any changes coming into these game modes and game types going into this short future?
Yeah, so on Assault, I think so far so good. We had a couple bugs early on, but the team was able to rapidly fix a bunch of those. I think there were like 3 weeks straight. We fixed like a bug here, a bug there. So overall, feeling really good about kind of the state that it's in and on the maps that it's on. So the season is just about to start. So I'm sure we're going to get more feedback, as now we're about to see it played at the very highest level with stakes on the line. So we're not expected to be, oh, it's perfect and everything's all peachy and players are going to love it 100% and no feedback to respond to. I'm sure we'll have some feedback. I'm sure the team will be thinking about okay, on Assault we need to move maybe the bomb spot here, or we need to adjust this spawn, or this weapon needs to be moved here for this reason. So this is kind of just the natural evolution of how all this works. So we've kind of just put it out. It's still fresh. Players are going to compete. There's going to be feedback. We'll respond to that feedback, and we'll go take it step by step from there.
I think feedback is always such an interesting part of the like HCS experience. How do you guys go about getting feedback for these new maps that are coming in? Obviously, like we saw that happen with Extraction when it was first added, and we saw that eventually not see its debut in the HCS. With Assault, like how are you guys going about procuring the feedback, especially from the pro players and like the high level matchmaking players, about how it's been playing and where it could potentially fit into the HCS and ranked experience?
Yeah, so I think first we start with the competitive insights team internally. They're a group of former pro players who play the game at a super high level. Obviously, they're not out there winning the world championship and whatnot, but it's a huge advantage for the studio that we can play all of these pieces of content at the highest level, before they even ship. So that is a big advantage. And then, folks on CIT, but as well as Richie, are always, talking to pros and watching themselves or listening in on streams, and just kind of taking in information from all different kind of avenues to see what the issues are and how we address the feedback. And then, if there seem to be common themes, then they'll get on the phone with guys or exchange DMs to learn more about the problem and try to understand the specific issues and feedback more. And then from there, we'll kind of see what solutions we might be able to, approach the problem with. So, if it's something simple like, okay, this weapon is just overpowered because this one scenario, that's kind of an easy fix. But things like spawns are really tricky to try to hone in on. If you add a spawn here, it impacts maybe another game type there. So that requires kind of more testing and iteration. So yeah, it depends on the feedback and whatnot, but yeah, generally we're kind of out there with our eyes and our ears, seeing what people are saying, and then Richie, I think, and Clutch and others do a good job of just getting on the phone with pros or exchanging DMs and just kind of learn more about the issues.
We've seen in the past, like after some HCS tournaments on Faceit, where there's been like forms sent out through Faceit
Hmm.
to players. Is that something we should expect for this first month before the first major LAN, about getting feedback from the entire community about these maps and game types?
Yeah, I don't know that we'll have enough time to make really impactful changes before the first land, just with the timing of it all. But it's definitely something I'll say we should do. So that's one I could take to the team and see what we can draw up for a form, and maybe we get changes in before the first major, maybe not. But I still think you're right. Good call to get some extra feedback that way.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite things is like getting one of those forums. I'm like, ooh, I gotta play the tournament. I gotta give my my little feedback back. So
There you go.
appreciate if that actually happens. I'd super love it. The one thing that I've been really excited about for Halo is like the addition of so many new things. Right, we're in year 4 of a Halo game, which is having competitive Halo in year 4 is kind of an unprecedented area. Going through that, I mean, can you talk a little bit about like what the health and status of the ranked experience is in Halo Infinite going into year 4, and sort of how you guys are balancing that compared to how it's been in previous years?
Yeah, I think for us, we don't take this for granted. We every year want to continue and keep running HCS and providing tournaments for the community and whatnot. And ultimately, it's a big business decision for the studio. Running HCS is certainly not cheap. So it's just been, I think, a testament to the kind of overall health of ranked and HCS that we can keep going for a year 4. And it's, as you said, it's unprecedented. There's not been another game that has had 4 consecutive years of, major competition, especially we're looking at, $1 million world championship. Like, it's a really big deal that we get to continue past this point. And so, yeah, I mean, I can't really go into specific numbers or things like that. But I think with this last update, we definitely saw, a lot of players jump back in and play, and we saw a lot of seemingly people just playing longer, playing more in overall ranked, not even just ranked arena. So response has been positive, but again, it's not something we take for granted. The team works hard at this every single day, and we just have to keep pushing. And that's why you're seeing things like S&D extraction, and that's why you're seeing these maps come in and the map contests and things like that. Like, we're pushing to keep players interested in Halo Infinite and excited about the game. And so far this year, I feel like we're off to a good start. It's a good content update that we released, and people are really excited about the HCS season. And competition kicks off tomorrow, but it's still early in the season. Overall positive response about S&D extraction. So we're hoping to keep the momentum going and see where it takes us.
Yeah, and going into year 4, the ranked experience, I'm honestly, it's been pretty cool to see how often things have changed, right? I think a lot of the new features that you guys have put in have been well received, like the +7, -7 after you get to the, what is it, 1600 now? The 4
I
stack
think it's
cap,
1700.
1700. Yeah, 1700. The 4 stack cap being lifted up to that same number as well. How have you guys been monitoring that? Do you think there should be any changes? I actually had a lot of questions about like potentially raising the 4 cap ceiling again, potentially lowering where that +7, -7 starts. Do you guys foresee any changes, and how have you been monitoring that?
We think right now it's settled at a pretty good spot. We definitely heard some anecdotal feedback about the 4-team cap being maybe a little too low. And then we were honestly, like, when we launched the +7, -7, like, we launched it as an experiment because we were worried about CSR inflation and how that would cause like a really weird perception in matchmaking. Like, we were worried about players who were like 1800 matching with players who were like 2900, and they just like couldn't grok, like, why am I matching with players this higher CSR? So we were pretty worried about that. But I think mostly players understand the system and the way it works. And I think if you're up in that 1700 plus, like, not having to go like +4 for a win and -14 for a loss. Uh, I mean, I'm not at that level, but it must feel pretty good, and that's what players are telling us. It feels good to like, hey, I won more than I lost tonight, so my CSR is a net positive. So I think overall it's a good thing, and we're not seeing as much kind of inflation as we thought. So yeah, right now we think, just to bring it back home, we think it's settled to a pretty good spot. We're monitoring it by looking at feedback, but also data in the game to see, again, like how that CSR inflation is going, but also just the number of players who are matching solo duo versus, team of three and team of four. And the vast majority of players search solo duo in our
Mhm.
game. So we think overall things are in a pretty good spot, and there doesn't seem to be any data or feedback that suggests, we got it really wrong or that we need to urgently change something.
Uh, what's the reasoning behind not potentially expanding that +7 -7 cap to all of matchmaking? Right. I think a lot of people have gotten it to like they want to have that same experience of like I won more today than I lost, like I went up, and like what's the thought inside the studio as to why you guys keep it only at the 1700 cap right now?
Yeah, the big concern is that if you don't, or if you have deterministic +7 -7 or whatever the number is for all players, then um, your CSR starts to become less of a accurate reflection of your actual skill, and we worry that players will start to kind of drift from what their actual skill is, and that will impact the perception of matchmaking overall. Where you're on a team with players you think you're better than because your CSIs are or higher, or vice versa, and things like that. And generally speaking, from a competitive standpoint, it makes your rank more accurate, and I think that's ultimately a good thing. Ranks should be accurate to where your skill actually is and how you perform versus what level you're expected to perform at. So I think it overall just makes things a bit more kind of accurate. I will admit that there's some like head scratching that happens in the game because it doesn't give you good feedback as to like, well, why did I only go +4? Or hey, I did better than my teammate and he went up +8, but I only went up +7. So there's a lot of like confusion. And I think if we had better messaging in the game as to like how it all worked and why you went up the amount that you went up, then I think there might be kind of more favoritism towards the system and how it works. But that's kind of our general approach as a studio is, we want CSR to be, as accurate as it could be compared to what your underlying skill is or your MMR.
Right, and that's I think a lot of people start to like that +7 -7 because it's like a known quantity, right? And I think
hmm
so often when you're playing Halo, it's like you have an okay game, but you lose 12 CSR, even though it's like, well, I went +5 and I lost 12 CSR for this win. What do you see as like an opportunity for maybe some more clarity for those that are experiencing like these CSR fluctuations and kind of better understanding how the rank system works? Like, is there a resource out there for players to kind of understand what directly impacts their plus minus for games?
I think we've released some kind of matchmaking blogs over the years, maybe early on in Infinite. There also was originally, I think when we launched, a feature that basically showed you if you underperformed or overperformed on your kills and deaths. And ultimately, that was removed early on, um, just because I don't think players fully realized that like they had expectations going into the match for what their kills and deaths were supposed to be, and obviously, no one likes to see that they underperformed. So, if it's not like generally, if it's not like explained to you properly or thoroughly, it's like not a good feeling.
Mm.
And we're amongst the esports community, so we are hardcore as hell. So I think for probably most of the people watching, and I know for myself, like regardless of if that thing tells me I played like crap or not, like I'm just gonna queue again because I'm like hard headed and I want to win, and like I love this game and whatnot. But for a lot of players, that stuff can be either daunting or will turn them off and things like that. So um, yeah, I think that's probably why that at least that part of it was removed originally.
Well, I think that's actually some great insight because it is funny to be like, yeah, I went plus 10. It's like, well, the game was you're supposed to go plus 15. It's
Yeah,
like,
well, actually, yeah.
yeah, it's like it's a funny little thing to think about. But moving back into some of the additions that you guys have added, Assault's been, I think, a very fun playlist so far. But I saw a lot of questions from the community asking about what the process was for testing maps. Only 2 maps for it, and there was actually a lot of talk about why Bazaar wasn't added as a map itself. I think I had even like more explicit feedback from people like Tiberius Oddly, like an analyst in the scene. I was like, that was like screaming like this map was made for Assault. Like, why is it not in the playlist?
Well, I can tell you, Bazaar was not made for Assault. I can tell you factually that it was not made for that. But yeah, that aside, yeah, I think generally the team feels like Bazaar needs a lot more work than we're just able to do right now on the map. I think if the guys could kind of wave a magic wand, they would probably move out some walls and open up some more paths and change a bunch of spawns here. They're like probably overhaul the map in a significant way. So, I don't have insights into all of the conversations that the guys had about the maps, but I know they played Assault on a wide swath of maps and ultimately felt like, Aquarius and Fortress were the best suitors.
And for this year, right, we've had 2 new maps in the game mode that's been added, and we're potentially getting S&D throughout this year as well. Should we be expecting more, right? More new maps, more Forge creations in particular to come into the ranked experience this year?
Yeah, I think last year we were really focused on getting kind of CTF maps kind of in the rotation. And I think we've done that now. We've got Fortress in there, and we've got Fortress and Origin, excuse me. As the graphic comes up on the screen. I didn't want to look to cheat. I was like, I know you know this. So I think now, based on all the feedback, we're looking at kind of ASIM maps, specifically ones that really support oddball well. That seems to be the loud and clear message that we have heard and message received. So the guys have been looking at a lot of the maps that the pros have been talking about on the Forge Hub competitions, ones that you guys kind of broadcast the tournaments on. People tweeted us pretty regularly like, hey, look at this map, and I'll just go tag Richie, and they'll go play test things. So yeah, we are actively on the hunt for competitive ASIM maps that could make their way into HCS ideally. But again, it's like it's a long process. We play test the heck out of these, and a lot of times they'll need some kind of iteration, and even then we have to make sure that they are ready to go into matchmaking, and it has to be performant on all consoles. We're seeing feedback from say midship and even a little bit for Origin about if you play on an Xbox One, the frame rate is not quite there. So it's like there's a lot of kind of hoops to jump through and bars to meet, so to speak, to make sure these maps are kind of ready for prime time. And yeah, it just requires a lot of due diligence to kind of get them up to that level, and it takes time. It just you can't again wave a magic wand and put the map in matchmaking. It just unfortunately doesn't work that way. So, but yeah, the guys I can confirm have been out there kind of scouring the earth for these ASIM community maps, and once we find one that we feel like is a good fit, we're gonna do our best to get it in as soon as we can.
I'd love to see like a system where these maps that you guys are working on could be like showcased earlier, but not necessarily added earlier. Like, I'd love an opportunity for like a weekend where I can go and play these new maps that are potentially going to be in rotation, but know that it's like it's this for this weekend. Like, we're testing it, we're getting feedback. I think that's maybe like where that concern comes for a lot of players is like it kind of feels like a void until you hear the information that it is being added, rather than it is, oh, we're working towards this. I mean, is there any plans to sort of address that feedback into this year?
I mean, as far as like standing up a playlist, it kind of has to be that way. It's not a kind of fast and easy process for us to just like take a bunch of community maps, throw them in a playlist, have it go live for a weekend, and then gather feedback and make decisions from there. Like, we have all these like requirements that we need to meet. There's a lot of people that work on this game, and we're not in a position to just like take a swath of maps that we're not sure how they're going to work out, or we don't know if they're going to be, performant, or if they're game breaking bugs and things like that. Like, there's a huge investment to just like get a single map into matchmaking in a playlist. And so when we do that, we have to be like very confident that this is the map that's going to be worth all of that time and effort. So it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of the way it works. So what that means is we have to do a lot of our own internal kind of play testing. And then it's like, okay, we know this is the one that we want to take to matchmaking or whatever. And then it kind of like initiates that process of, meeting those bars for quality in terms of, again, performance, bugs, things like that. And then there's back and forth with the forger, or the internal team gets into forge and, adjust things themselves. And, again, it takes time, and it's a kind of an arduous process. So we have to be, if a map goes into matchmaking, it's because we are like confident that this is the right map. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, we have seen in the past where there have been additions into the playlist that like quickly get taken out, right? So I think a lot of people were talking about that Truth remake. And unfortunately, I was one of the few players that was like, I was in LA, didn't have my Xbox or my PC, and then I came back home and like, let's play, and it was gone, and I was like, oh no,
yeah,
what happened? So can you like kind of go into the process of what happened to that Midship remake and whether we can expect to see it back in the future?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It wasn't the process that got us to that point wasn't good enough to catch all the issues. So, yeah, I think right now the team has been working on trying to fix that map. I think it seems like some of the Covenant pieces are just not as performant as others, and we don't have, as a ranked team, all the tools to address all of that. So the team is, trying to approach the problem from different angles and see how we can fix it. But yeah, that was one that unfortunately probably should not have gone live without even further testing. So, these things happen. We try to meet deadlines and want to deliver a certain experience by a certain time frame for an update, and sometimes things are missed, or things just slip through the cracks that way. So yeah.
And I mean, once again, I love that we are adding new maps, even if we have to take them out. I'm hoping that we see the Midship remake come back. I would love to play some Midship again. You talked about
I agree.
Making Oddball, right? And having new maps for Oddball. One of the other requests I've seen a lot is Strongholds, right? Right now in the HCS rotation, there's only 2 maps for Strongholds. I think people are probably a little bit thinking of it as getting a little bit stale. Although we have seen additions, they haven't quite played the way that we've expected. Should we expect any new Strongholds map as well as some Oddball maps coming into this year?
Yeah, I think what we always try to go for is, on a symmetrical map, it can work across multiple modes, and same goes for an asym map. So I think if the map that we found was exclusively only good for Oddball, then that would be not as effective as we could be. So if there's a map that works great for Oddball and Strongholds and maybe King and Hill, then to me that's a bigger win.
I think that's a super fair point, and I see it all in the chat, so I'll bring it up because chat's been spamming it. They really
I don't
like
have the chat open, so
they
yeah,
really like the map Guillotine. They really want to see it. If you're familiar with the Forge Hub tournament, I don't know. Can you give us any sneak peek? Like, have you guys been testing Guillotine in the back so far?
Yeah, Guillotine was all over my Twitter feed, and I know Renegade was like streaming on it, and I popped in his stream. It was like in January, so the guys have been play testing it. I don't have an update on kind of what their assessment was at this point or where it's at in the process, but Guillotine is absolutely on our radar, and I know the guys have played it.
I keep seeing it in the chat, so I figure, hey, I better ask for chat. We have seen a lot of sandbox changes coming into this year as well, right? It was almost every weapon that was basically GA'd by the pros was touched in some sort of way. Can you guys talk about what the process was touching the sandbox this time around, and where you guys have landed, and what your guys' thoughts are right now with where it is currently at?
Yeah, so last year, I think in terms of sandbox, the big priority was just getting the Bandit to a good spot. It was kind of its premiere in HCS. It was the first time that we had ever changed a starting gun, within a title. So, um, we adjusted the rate of fire, and that had a knock-on impact on, other weapons, which I think is why the pros kind of GA'd, those guns. And yeah, from there we were just kind of observing, gathering feedback, just listening what people were talking about with them, and the team started working on addressing these weapons. And the line that we try to walk was, hey, let's kind of nudge them in the right direction. So ideally pros will give them another shot, and they don't have to GA or feel like they have to GA them anymore. But we didn't want to just like nerf them into oblivion for the rest of the community, right?
Mm.
The other 99% of players who are like, oh, what do you mean the Bulldog's great? So it's a hard line to walk. I think this has always been like this has been like a problem that Halo's had since the beginning. And and lots of games have this problem is your pros can do things with certain items that no one else can, and so they're able to abuse them. And the problem that you try to solve is like how do you address them for the pros and keep them in still in a good place for the rest of the community. So I think that's what the team went after, and I think it was a valiant effort. And I think overall it feels like the sandbox is in a better place. It is more balanced, and at the same time we made some kind of layout changes, but the general idea was, hey, let's kind of nudge these weapons in the right direction. um, let's address some of the feedback about the jiggle peeking and things like that, and the grenade spam, which I think has all been positively received so far. And yeah, at the same time, let's not kind of ruin these weapons for the rest of the community who's just been like enjoying them in Social Slayer or whatever kind of playlist. So that was the overall kind of direction, and we wanted to line it up with just before the start of the HCS season, just so okay, now going into the new year, there's kind of something fresh, and we've refined the sandbox, and it's kind of ready to go for the new season.
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, I'd love to go into a more specific example and get what your thoughts are, and maybe how it may impact your thinking about the sandbox going into the future. Right? Is the Mangler, right? We had it in year one, super overpowered. The pros almost immediately GA'd it, and then we saw the
Hmm.
tweaks happen, but the tweaks never really resulted in the Mangler not getting off that GA list. And then
Hmm.
eventually the decision was made to take the Mangler out of competitive entirely, boost it back to where it was season one, which I think a lot of the casual scene really enjoyed. And like, I love
Hmm.
using the Mangler. I just don't love using it in 4v4 ranked. I feel like that same argument could happen for lots of the weapons that we're seeing currently getting touched, like the Heatwave, for example. The Heatwave, I believe, is currently GA'd even after its current update change.
Hmm.
Is that sort of a direction that we could maybe see in the future where instead of trying to make the Heatwave work in professional play, we take it out and then boost it back to its original state where the casual community can feel a little bit more in tuned and have a weapon that feels like a power weapon once again, but the pro play sort of not be touched in the same way? Is that something that you guys are kind of looking at into the future?
We did talk about it. I think generally our internal postmortem about the Mangler situation was that we handled it poorly. The Mangler was, and I think still is, like a really fun gun to use. Just like getting a three shot with that thing or single shot meleeing is just like really fun. So I think
Mm.
overall, like a big, great addition. And I think early on in HCS was like damn exciting to watch. The drop shot meta got stale pretty quick, but just seeing players in those first few months use the Mangler was exciting, and I think it added to the overall game. The issue was that again, it got overpowered, and we took way too long to address it. And then when we finally did, it was the wrong solution. And then we were at this kind of point where we we thought that in order to bring it back after it had been GA'd for so long, that we would have to like completely change the identity of the gun. And that just didn't seem like the right solution based on where we're at, all the other things that we were working on. the kind of perceived value of the Mangler and what it would do to the pro scene or not do versus how it would impact the rest of the player base and things like that. So we just said, you know what, let's kind of throw in the towel on ranked for the Mangler. But ultimately, when we look back, we don't think, okay, yeah, we handled it the right way. We think, actually, we botched that one. And so for these other weapons that are now GA'd, it's not just one with the Mangler, there are multiple. And generally speaking, like we think it's a negative thing for the whole game and the community if we just continue to strip items out of the sandbox. I think it creates a bigger rift between your pro scene and the rest of the players. I'm not even talking about like social, but ranked players as well. And generally, I think that's just unhealthy. And then you start to get like different feedback from the pros compared to everyone else, not only because of their skill, but because their sandbox is totally different. And I think that rift just continues to grow over time. And so it was talked about, and I'd given the direction that, hey, we're not going to remove these guns from the maps, even if the pros continue to GA them or not, because the vast majority of players are, we feel, still enjoying them, and they're not as negatively disrupting, or the players don't feel like they're as negatively disrupting to their play as the pros do. And we've just kind of like, for these guns, like made peace with that for now. So again, we gave it a shot to kind of nudge it in the right direction. We'll see if things change in the future. Again, we're just starting the season, so we're going to take it kind of step by step. But that was transparently at least my whole thought process on the thing.
I think it's a super smart way to think about it, right? It's like the ranked experience is for more than just the professional player, and I do think there is some credence to that. Like they want to play with the Heat Wave too. Like we should let them if they feel that that's a big feedback point for them. That being said, we have seen a lot of changes in year 3. One of the big ones was the starting weapon change, right? We saw the Bandit Evo come in, and it's staying. Year 4, it's still here. It's still the main weapon in the ranked playlist and in the HCS. What was the feedback like through last year with the Bandit Evo? Do you expect to see any changes to it? I've seen a lot of feedback from professional players, in particular, saying that it's a little bit too easy to use, that the magnetism is a little too strong on it. Can we expect any nerfs to the Bandit this year? And what was the decision as to staying with the Bandit this year instead of potentially going back to the battle rifle?
Yeah, we were really happy with the Bandit last year. Again, it was kind of a bet that we took, moving away from the battle rifle, which, we internally have called it. It's almost like the lightsaber for a Jedi. It's like the weapon, the battle rifle is just this coveted thing. So, it was a risk, but we knew there was a lot of players who were looking for a single shotgun, but also were just huge Halo 5 fans, and just like thrust sliding around with that pistol in Halo 5 was pretty magical. And so we just thought about, how could we kind of push the game forward, do something interesting in a way that's going to get players to want to come back and try it. If you're still playing the game, give you something fresh to learn and kind of reset your mastery in a sense. And the Bandit was already a gun that was kind of being made, so it was just like aligning the stars, and we were like, okay, let's go for it. And we had actually made the decision to build the Bandit Evo before the Bandit even came out, and the hope was that, which actually turned out to be true, that players would be like, holy crap, the Bandit is awesome. I could totally see how it could be a starting gun if it just had XYZ changes. And we were already working on those XYZ changes. And then the Bandit Evo came out, and everyone's like, okay, yes, this is the gun. And so we worked to refine it, get it to a good place during year 3. And I think right now, in terms of where to set your expectations, I think we hear the feedback, but we just made a lot of changes to the game in the last month, and the season hasn't even really started yet. So we're going to keep an eye on things, and if we feel like a change we need to make to the Bandit in whatever direction, then we'll make that change. But right now we don't have anything like that. We're kind of play testing, so to speak. So
I mean, super interesting. I'm big fan of the band. I think I told you first frame, I was like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. But I did get some feedback from pro players in particular saying that they really love the Bandit Evo and how you guys changed the weapon to make it a little bit more appropriate for pro play and competitive play. And that they want to see the same thing happen to the battle rifle in the sandbox. Because where it currently sits is it's a very strong weapon at that long range. In fact, like a little bit too strong in a lot of people's minds compared to the Bandit. Is there plans for like these sort of evolution weapons to come out that are more suited for competitive play, featuring like something like the battle rifle?
No, I mean, I think the Bandit and Bandit Evo was kind of a one-off, I guess you could call it. Yeah, I think the BR being super powerful long range is intentional, right? It's like you want to go long haul on recharge to get the BR so that you can then shoot all the way across the map. And if all the guns kind of fit the same role on the sandbox, but also have the same DPS and all the same ranges, like I think then it's a little less interesting to move around the map, and it just creates, I think, other kind of gameplay problems. So it's intentional that the BR is like your long range gun. So who knows? Again, like we're keeping an eye on all the feedback. We need to tune things as we go. I say right now we're not planning like a BR Evo, especially if the feedback is just like, hey, reduce the range. I don't know that if for an Evo variant of the gun. If you look at the Bandit and the Bandit Evo, I mean, it literally has a scope and like a very different tuning. So, if we feel like the BR just needs a shorter range, then we'll just shorten the range and not create like an Evo variant of it. But yeah, that's at least where my head's at right now on that.
I think it's definitely respectable. One thing, while I have you here, this is my opportunity to throw my Hail Mary.
This is a community interview.
I know. No, but I have to just 1 second. I think the Bandit Evo has been really fun. I think a lot of people still want that battle rifle experience as that starting weapon every once in a while. Was there any discussion about potentially making it so that we have dual starting weapons in the HCS? Whereas if you play on one map that is a shorter range map, you have a battle rifle at your hands with Bandit Evos on pickup. And if you're on a long range map, you have a Bandit Evo as your starting weapon with battle rifles on the map, right? And switching between the two depending on map and game type.
I think you brought this up to me once.
I've been
now it's familiar
on the hilltop screaming. I want to play with both. I'm a greedy man. I want to play with both the battle rifle and the Bandit in my ranked experience.
I'll say we haven't talked about that. I don't know that it'd be as simple as like, okay, these are the maps that should be Bandit start. These are the maps that should be BR start. Like the experience at this point is like fully tailored around Bandit starts. And I don't know that we could, unless we made the Bandit extremely similar to the BR or vice versa, I don't know that we could accomplish that in a like good enough way, because we'd have to change we'd have to change probably the weapons on the maps for each. And I'm sure there'd be a lot of overlap, but there'd probably be some guns that just don't work as well when you're fighting against a BR versus a Bandit. So it's an interesting idea. I'll give you credit for that. But I'll say it's not something that we're actively exploring.
Hey, folks, shoot your shot. That's all I'm saying. Shoot your shot.
No problem with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. That being said, Commando starts when? Into year 5. Let's get it going. Now, I mean, for me, that's all the questions I really had prepped for the ranked experience. But is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think is sort of important for us to take a quick detour before we move on into the HCS?
No, last thing I'll say is really about ranked and I think S&D extraction. I saw what I would call like allergic responses to S&D extraction, like not in my Halo and this is not the game and should not go into ranked arena or anything like that. Again, for us, like this is not meant to replace Slayer or CTF or King of the Hill or any of these kind of like stalwart modes. We're just trying to add something new that's never been added and hopefully get a bunch of people interested in playing the game and loving some new experience. So consider it like a net addition. Don't consider it as like replacing something that you love, because that's definitely not our intention and not why it exists. So we'll have a ranked playlist for S&D extraction, and hopefully it has a lot of great community forge maps, and hopefully players love it just on its own merit.
Love that. And I think a lot of people are going to love this next section. We're going to go and start talking about the HCS season in total. What's to come, what the partnership program, HCS Grassroots, all these questions that you guys have on your mind will be answered. But we're going to take a quick break. Give us a couple minutes. We'll be right back, and anything that you wanted to know about the HCS, we'll be asking.
Can't keep my head on my shoulders. Feels like I'm losing myself. I still see your shadow on the wall, like I'm living in hell. Touchdown in a new place, trying to escape your poison, and I hate that I miss a mistake. I'm tired of your ghosts, but I don't wanna run away. I'm walking on a tightrope, and I wish I could touch the ground. My future's covered in smoke, but my head is up in the clouds. And maybe this will all fade after one bad day, and I'll be okay. But my life is in the worst place, and I can't wait for heartbreak from my mistakes. I don't wanna burn these bridges anymore. It's easy to say things you don't mean when you're at war. I'm just too tired to fight, but there's an end in sight. Wave the white flag, I'm yours tonight. 'Cause my heart can't take these heights. I need your love with me for life. I need your love, I need your love with me for life. Sorry it ended this way. I need your love with me for life. Sorry it ended this way. I know I made all mistakes. I need your love with me for life. I placed some mirrors in my mind. Thought that I could theorize, but I could only see in black and white. And I got so terrified. I looked for all the silver lines, determine what is what. It left me open, undefined. I found myself deconstruct. Operating from my ego, but I'm trying to disconnect. I wonder, where do we go? The unknown is that effect. I've tried to fix my overthinking. Why do I overanalyze?
Welcome back, and we're to our final segment in this interview with Tashi. from Halo Studios. Tashi, welcome back, and we're going to be talking all about the Halo Championship Series and sort of an unprecedented year, right? Year 4 of a competitive Halo, something we'd never seen before in any of the Halos. It's always been sort of a 3-year cycle. In Halo 5, we saw a 3-year cycle and then a 2-year dark period where there wasn't any sort of LAN events in the main Halo game. I think we went to MCC for a little bit. But year 4, no changes this year as to what the standard HCS practice will be. And to me, that screams the question of, like, is the health of the HCS doing really well in your guys' eyes right now? Like, where is the HCS sort of ecosystem fitting within Halo right now?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, I think the fact that we have a year 4 and even a year 3 and a year 2, and again, we don't take this for granted, but I think the fact that we're still going and we have a year 4 is just a testament to, how the studio perceives the health of the league, the impact that it has on the franchise, the impact that it has on the game, how the game's performing. So, the studio has resoundingly decided to invest in HCS year 4, and we need to go out there and kick butt as much as we try to do every single year. And hopefully the community kind of supports in a big way too. But yeah, I think again, the fact that we're here is a testament to how everything has been performing and how the studio perceives the impact of HCS being the value of HCS.
I want to focus in on something that you said right there, right? Go kick butt for this year on specific goals, right? It's like, and to me that sort of asks the question of, like, what are the short-term goals going into this year for the HCS, and what's that roadmap look for, like, this year? Like, what are the goals you're trying to hit, but also 5 years down the road, what are the longer-term goals for the HCS?
Yeah, I think for us, we think of generally esports and HCS as a loyalty program for the game and the franchise. And the people that love Halo and competitive Halo and play ranked or whatever it is, even if you don't play ranked but you watch HCS, these are our biggest fans and our biggest cheerleaders, and they play more than everyone else. And we want to make sure that we're taking care of these fans and we're keeping them in our community. And so at a very high level, that's how the studio thinks about HCS and the value of it. More granularly, what the team is going after is viewership. So we look at live concurrency. For us, it's a big measure of just kind of all overall health and interest in the scene, and it's kind of a mark of relevancy for us, right? If we're kind of in the mix with some of the other bigger shooters on the market, then it's a good overall sign of health and relevancy for the franchise and for the game and for the ecosystem in the league as well. And then, of course, there are bills to pay, and not only for us, for our partner teams. So the league does sell sponsors. Our teams sell sponsors. There's skins in the game that hopefully fans love and want to purchase. So that is one of the things that we're, of course, pushing for. There's also attendance, right? How many people are attending our events? How many people are competing online? How many people are competing in the open bracket? Things like that. Those are other kind of measures of success. And then generally, what's the overall sentiment, right? So do fans love HCS? Do they love coming to the events? Are they having a great time? Do they feel like the quality of the product is where it needs to be? They feel like they're part of the community and have inroads into the community. And, all of those things are really important measures for us too. So when I say the team needs to go kick butt, that's how we're going to measure if we're kicking butt. And, long term, I think what we've kind of learned with Infinite is, I think largely the goals that we set out to accomplish were the right ones because of the impact that we were able to drive for the franchise and to the game. And, again, the fact that we're kind of still here. So it shows that, we had our goals and our North Star in the right place. So I think fast forward 5 years, I don't think our goals are really going to change that much. Just like at a super high level, there might be, new things that come into the play. Are there goals that we want to go after? But I don't think we're suddenly going to look at viewership and be like, actually, who really cares about that? Or people attending our events, I don't know that we care. People playing online in tournaments, So I think like those fundamental goals will probably be the same goals in the future.
And I think so far, I think you said you guys put that North Star in the right spot. But I'm curious about in the grand scheme of things, have there been any sort of shifting into like what's your guys' ideas of what the HCS should look like from year one of Halo Infinite to where we currently sit now? Has there been any big shifts as to what you guys are sort of going after this time?
Um, Hard to say if there were big shifts. I mean, we've definitely made shifts. So, like the teams are hosts for the events, and it's not really a shift in our North Star, but it's a shift in our solutions, right?
Mm.
Because we can help the teams out at the same time as helping us out and bring fans closer to the teams, to the events. And that's like a different way that was really unlocked partway through when teams were asking us to run events just because they had built up all this expertise and experience in running events for other games. So that was like, it was, again, it wasn't a shift in our goals, it was a shift in the way we kind of did things. But I mean, we still run open events. We still have the $1 million world championship. Um, I would say maybe a bigger shift is we just have a lot more focus on US based events as if you're international. I know that makes you sad to hear, and I'm sorry, but um, yeah, Halo is just a very US dominant game. And in order for us to maximize hitting our goals and keep HCS going, we just put a lot of focus on the United States and running events here and, partner teams here and all of that stuff. So we still try to keep all the international teams part of the circuit overall. And, this weekend we have tournaments and again, all 4 regions like we did day one with Infinite. But that's been kind of a shift that I think you've seen if you look from year one where we had, I think we had an event in Spain and then we had, an event in Mexico and things like that. And, we've kind of brought it all kind of back to the United States, really.
Yeah, I mean, was that a result in sort of like how season 3 played out with London? Like, was London a great success for you guys in your eyes, or was it sort of like a sort of the writing on the wall that maybe we should shift to a US focus?
No, I think London was a success. It was in some ways more successful than our US events. Like the um, fan attendance was larger than what we saw at some of the other majors. I think we sold out of that in like literally minutes, and we were like, "Oh crap, we were not expecting that." So we were very pleasantly surprised. And then viewership, we kind of expected to take a hit just because of the time zones, and um, we saw what we basically expected, which was a significant hit. And so we'd kind of like made peace with that. Like we weren't going into this year saying, "Oh no, definitely no London," but we also weren't saying like, "Oh, we need to do a lot more London." What were we thinking? And I think if Quadrant stuck around, or there was another kind of UK team that we were ready to partner with, then we would have probably heavily considered it. But I don't think it would have been a guarantee that we would have been back in London again.
Well, I mean, that's a segue into the next topic is the partnership program, right? We've seen some drastic changes this year. First of all, I think this might have been the best kept secret in the HCS. TSM joining. As like I feel like caught so many people by surprise. You talk about the
I'm also
process,
happy about that.
yeah, of like TSM getting involved in the HCS program.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking to TSM really since like year one HCS. They were always one of the teams that we'd been courting into HCS, and I think through MCC and Halo 5, and then early on in Infinite, it just didn't quite pan out. Business goals are in different areas. Teams are focusing on different things at certain times. There's just a lot of factors, and the esports landscape has changed a lot in those 10 years, 11 years almost. So, it just never quite worked out. But we had a kind of an opening that we saw coming. And so we'd always kept kind of a open relationship with TSM. It was never any of this like, hell no, we're never joining Halo or anything like that. So it was like, a spot opened up and we gave him a ring, and the stars kind of seemed to align.
I mean, same process with Shopify Rebellion, though a little bit different, right? Shopify Rebellion had been in the scene for a while, placed extremely well last year, and had been sort of making this investment into Halo. Can you honestly, two questions for it, right? I mean, obviously, what was the conversation like with Shopify Rebellion to get them added? Was it just a simple, hey, let's do this? And the second is like, why not? Why didn't we see Shopify Rebellion potentially in the HCS program earlier than we saw them now in year 4?
Yeah, for Shopify, the process was essentially when Quadrant had informed us they're really not even exiting Halo, but they exited esports entirely. Um, Shopify were definitely kind of next up on the list. They had invested in Halo scene for a long time. They had a booth at Worlds, which fans really loved, and it was pretty clear to me that they were kind of investing for all the right reasons into Halo and all the games that they play. And we have a good relationship with them, and that was just kind of like an easy and obvious fit. So that was as simple as me calling them up, thanking them for being part of HCS, and then offering them a spot, which they humbly accepted. And then your second question was why not earlier? Is that right?
Yeah.
So generally, the approach that we've taken is we don't want to expand the number of slots in the partnership program until we feel like the scene and the ecosystem can sustain it. And so we've kind of, past year 1 have been at this number that we feel like is almost like homeostasis. Like it feels like kind of the right fit where we're able to give enough attention to those teams. The kind of scene is not too huge in a way where it feels like only a small percentage are getting the benefit and the rest are kind of left in the dust. And then also, we have to look at things like the revenue that the game pulls from the skins and, the teams that are, we feel worthy of being in the partnership program. I think you've seen a lot of HCS or teams that competed in HCS that were not in the partnership program that wanted to, that dissolved and crashed and burned. So, when I look at those, I'm like, oh, well, it's a good thing we didn't bring them into the program. So we try to be kind of measured and calculated. And again, for this, we were waiting for a slot to open up. And, it just was the right time and the right place.
I want to speak a little bit more about spots opening up, right? We lost 2 organizations. Obviously, Quadrant exited esports altogether, but Sentinels is an organization I think many would argue is extremely healthy, right? We've seen them have one of the premier Valorant teams in the world. It seems as if they're expanding into other titles like Marvel Rivals. What was the conversation like with them about them exiting, and do you think that they like what do you think could change in the future to like sort of incentivize these organizations not to leave the program?
Yeah, I think, well, first off, like Sentinels were a great partner. They were, supporting Halo with the team, like when we were running events on Reach and during like the grassroots era, so to speak. So nothing but love and respect to the Sentinels squad. And I think we left it on good terms. And if there's opportunities in the future that makes sense, then, they'll definitely be one of the teams that we call up on the phone and keep talking to. I think for this go around, it just didn't make as much sense for their business and where they were headed and they had gone and where they wanted to focus their resources. And, again, we were okay with that. We had other teams that were kind of interested and ready to go and were excited about HCS. And so, again, it was no foul play or anything like that. It just no longer kind of made sense for them. And, it was kind of, okay, shake hands and hope to work with you again in the future.
I'm curious as to like what are some of the benefits that have been added to being a partnership team throughout these like last few years. So like we saw Sentinels leave, and it's like I think that to me I'd love to see like what their thought process as to like potentially a reason for them to stay, or for a reason for potentially some of these teams to stay into the next year. Has there been any sort of added benefit that we've seen from year 1 to year 4 in joining the partnership program?
Yeah, certainly. The partnership program has changed a lot over the years, and I can't get into the details of numbers and figures and whatnot. Generally, our approach is we want the teams to kind of cultivate a fan base inside of Halo, and then give them opportunities to uh, invest in the community and that fan base that they have cultivated, but do so in a way that financially makes sense for them. So, an example being, we asked the teams to have a booth at one of the majors, but we let them tie a sponsor to it, and we let them sell merch, and we don't take a cut of any of that. And their sponsors can conflict with our sponsors, and things like that. We also ask the teams to run tournaments, and we require that they run like a broadcast, and it's just like 2 a year. But this is an investment that they make, but we also give them opportunity to monetize that. So they can sell sponsors against the broadcast, or however they have freedom in the formats. They can do influencer tournaments, they can do open Halo events, whatever it might be. So we give them the opportunity to monetize, and again, it can be a conflicting sponsor or whatever it is. We also offer what I think is one of the more liberal offerings compared to other games with merchandise. So teams have the opportunity every year to sell kind of Halo and HCS co-branded merchandise, and they get a license for that. And there's a small royalty that needs to get paid back to us, but it's a good opportunity for teams to again, make some money and do some cool things for the fans in a sustainable way. So, what we don't want to do is just hand out kind of free cash and just subsidize like every single bit of the teams. Rather, we try to have a more balanced approach where there's some kind of safety net for the teams, but also, they have opportunities to go out there and kind of invest in the community and monetize at the same time. But, it takes work. It's not easy to run your own tournaments. It's not easy to do a full merch collab. It's not easy to have a booth at an event. It costs dollars and it takes people time. And, some teams just decide, hey, we actually want to invest these people time or dollars in other places. And it's like, yeah, we understand that. So that's kind of at a high level how we try to approach it, and some of the more specifics on how it's changed from year one.
And one of the big driving forces as to why teams join the partnership program are like the team skins, right? The in-game purchases that we've seen. And with the announcement of TSM and Shopify Rebellion being added, I've known plenty of players that are fiending at a chance to have a Shopify Rebellion skin, have a TSM skin. Usually around this point in the game, we've seen these skins drop. Haven't seen it this year. Is there a reason as to why there's been a sort of a delay as to seeing a TSM Shopify Rebellion set?
Yeah, I mean, the Infinite team has changed its process for how it creates content. And, I would say a lot of the studio is focused on future projects. So it just takes a little bit longer. And they're still making content for all the different passes and shop items and things like that. And it's just ultimately, we have to get in line basically with all the other priorities of the game. And the way it kind of worked out for the new content that we're going after, it just took a little bit longer. What we're working on are, I think, an upgrade over what we had last year, and it's not as just simple as like, a coding. So I guess there's a little teaser for some of the stuff we're cooking up for this year. So it is kind of new and high quality stuff, but it also means it takes longer to produce too. So yeah, it's just taking a bit longer than we would have liked, and hopefully the wait is worth it in the end.
I mean, is there an established timeline as to when we can expect it? Like before Arlington, post Arlington, as like sort of a bellwether of when these skins will be released?
It's going to be a while. So it'll be after Arlington, probably sometime later this summer.
Well, hey, I'm excited for it. I'm hoping maybe one of my favorite things I have right now is like when I get a kill with the sniper shot, the phase. I phase up on him.
Yeah.
Love that. I'm hoping we maybe get some more features like that in the future. Going into the roadmap of the year, there's some notable differences this year compared to past. Obviously, we still have the same format with teams organizing events, but we also see DreamHack being added back into the rotation. Previously, when we saw DreamHack, it was for the team invitationals. This one's going to be an open, but I couldn't help but notice that the verbiage for the tournament is also a little bit different. HCS Majors versus an HCS Open. Can you walk through what those differences are?
Yeah, it'll become a lot more clear once we're ready to share the format details and the prize pool and things like that. But it is not a major. It won't offer the same amount of points or prize pool as a major. probably smaller number of teams in the open bracket, things like that. So we just wanted to like clearly signal from the outset that it was not a major and set the expectations that way. That being said, we think it's still going to be a healthy prize pool and a really good broadcast and event. And being at DreamHack is really special, and we haven't been at a big DreamHack like this in a good while. So we're expecting it to be a great event, but wanted to make sure from a format perspective and how players also think about the points and things like that, that it was clear that it was not a major.
Are we going to see the same sort of activations at DreamHack compared to what we've seen at majors? One of the big features, right, is always that FFA prize pool that's there. Is there still going to be an FFA tournament? Are we going to still see those sort of side events that have propped up and are so popular in year 3?
So again, more details to be confirmed later, but generally speaking, the way we think about it is like if we have all the space for an open bracket, we have all the consoles, we have the admins, we're gonna run a bunch of tournaments. So yeah, that's my answer for today. But we're kind of finalizing all the details, so we should hopefully have more in the coming weeks.
Well, would love to see that update when it comes. One thing that's very exciting about DreamHack in particular is the fact that we're gonna have Call of Duty and Halo under the same roof for the first time in what feels like forever. It used to be a mainstay back in the MLG days, right? Gears of War, Halo, Call of Duty. Now with the recent acquisition, I should say, of Blizzard Activision being added to the Microsoft umbrella, can we expect maybe some more collaboration between the studios and seeing like an HCS CDL sort of opportunity in the future?
I mean, who knows? I have nothing to kind of announce or confirm today. We think they're doing a really good job over at CDL, and I'm excited for both Halo and Call of Duty to be under the same roof. We won't have a major, so it'll be a little different of a size, but that's okay. Should still bring a ton of energy to DreamHack from both sides. So, yeah, I mean, I would say with them kind of joining the Microsoft family, the kind of phone lines are open, but that's pretty much it at this point.
And then with the addition of the roadmap, right? We've seen the HCS Open being added. We also see a brand new feature that we haven't seen before, right? A small scale invitational tournament being hosted by Face Kason with your guys' support. Can you walk through what the decision was to sort of create this sort of smaller activation tournament and why you guys are excited about it?
Yeah, it was basically Kason's idea. I met him at Worlds last year, and we just kind of hit it off. He was a super kind of authentic guy, and clearly had his heart in the right places. Loves Halo, loves the community, wants to kind of support the game as much as he could, and I think that just kind of resonated with me. And later on, he kind of brought the idea of like, hey, let's do some sort of invitational. Can we figure this out somehow? And we were all in. So we just started kicking around ideas of when it could be, what it could be, and ultimately landed on what we have now, which is the kind of 4-team invitational. Is really like a taste test of what's to come for the rest of the season. So he kind of handpicked all the teams, and we're gonna have S&D extraction playable for first show match at the event. So that'll be a nice way to showcase that mode as well. So yeah, that's kind of how it all came together. And we're excited to try something new. We don't think we've really done anything quite like this before, so it'll be good for us to kind of learn and see how we might want to do things like this again in the future.
Seeing Face Case on have an event is awesome. It sort of reminds me of back when the HCS Grassroots program first was established, right? Seeing creators get involved in the HCS. It's been 2 years since we've seen anyone be added to the program. What's the current status of HCS Grassroots? Is there going to be any addition to some content creators like Kason potentially like being joining the program?
Yeah, I think the HCS Grassroots program, the team has been really focused on taking care of everyone that's in there and doing the best to support, starting up community events, supporting with Twitch drops, helping coordinate calendars, sharing what information we can. I think it's just been kind of heavily focused on that. And whenever we add more people to the program, it's kind of in a sense more mouths to feed.
Mm.
And we have a pretty small team, but I think the guys like punch above their weight class. So we try to be cautious and ensure that we're kind of measured in how we bring people into the program. And that hasn't kind of changed since day one. We always did like small waves. You're right. We haven't kind of brought anyone in quite a long time. Um, so I think there's probably room for us to kind of reevaluate that. What I've asked the team to do is kind of update strategy on HCS Grassroots and where we want to kind of take things in the future. So I would say actually, feel free to tweet it myself, tweet at Divian, post it in the chat, whatever it is. If there are ways you think HCS can better support the community creators and tournament operators in the community, like I think let us know. I think we're at a point now where we're kind of picking our heads up on HCS Grassroots program and saying like, okay, where do we want to kind of take this thing going forward? Since you're right, it's kind of been, I don't want to say dormant because the team is, busting their butts, and so is the grassroots folks. They're just running tons of events, and we're doing our best to promote them and support them and whatnot. So it's definitely not been idle, but it hasn't grown, which is probably the better way to say it. So, yeah, I would say let us know how you think we should either rethink the program or grow it, because I think now is a good time for us to kind of take feedback. And it's going to take time for us to think about it, and if we want to evolve the program, it's going to take time to do that and line that up. So I wouldn't expect to see anything in the immediate near future, but I think now is probably a good time for us to re-strategize and see how we want to evolve it or not evolve it going forward.
You brought up a tournament organization. I wanted to step into that realm just for a second.
Yeah, do you know any?
Yeah, right. we at LVT, we love tournaments, right? And we wanted to see sort of a support once again in just the entirety scene, not even just LVT, in regional tournaments, right? Like we've seen such great action on the major scale, and even like for Kason having such a big prize pool for invitationals for pro teams. Do you think that the HCS should will be able to offer support for some of our smaller scale tournament organizers, right? Like last year, I think it was Europa Halo had Blackpool for an event. We had Titans Orlando, and even if you go further back, we had great activations with the Microsoft Store tournaments. That I remember those being a massive hit back in the day. Is there any plans right now to sort of have a support structure for smaller scale tournament organizers?
I'd say there's nothing concrete right now. I think we're certainly open to it. The right opportunities, have to make sense. And um, I think right now we still like people approach us for licenses, and we help coordinate. Tournaments. There's a lot of tournaments that go on that kind of the broader community maybe is not picking up on. There's people from colleges who approach us for support. So the team is actively still supporting the tournament organizer community, but it might not be enough or in certain areas or pockets that everyone sees. So I think there's probably more that we could do here. I think we probably, as part of re-strategizing with grassroots, there's probably a way that we could, set up a structure that can better support them. So, yeah, I think largely on the same page as you. I think there's probably more that we could do here, and I think now's a good time for us to explore those.
If you were speaking to one of these like smaller tournament organizers that are interested in throwing a LAN, what would you say is the process for them to go and get support from the HCS? What would be your advice as to how they should ring up the appropriate channels?
Yeah, I think if you're running a LAN, in order for us to support you, we're going to have to see a very long track record of successfully running either LAN events or online tournaments, and having great community support and good community feedback and things like that. So, if you're just hearing this and you're like, I've never run tournaments before, but maybe I'll go run a LAN, that's awesome. But we're probably going to take a more wait and see approach with support. So, I would say for folks like yourselves at LVT, obviously you're part of the program already. We have a great relationship. You guys run tons of tournaments, have a great track record. If you were like, Tashi, we're going to run a LAN, we need some support. Like, we're going to pick up the phone right away and try to figure something out with you guys. So you guys are obviously, like I said, super well established. So that's what I would say first. If you're not super well established in the community, um, you know, we're not going to be as eager to want to support a LAN event, which typically comes with a greater level of investment in order to support it.
That being said, right, work on getting that support. I'd love
Yeah,
to see more grassroots organizers come into the scene and try to establish something. I think it's something that we desperately need is more
maybe
tournament
there'll be some.
organization.
Maybe this will be some folks inspired by S&D Extraction who
Eh,
want to run some tournaments.
That
So
is actually one of the things I'm really excited about. Is I hope there's a tournament scene that pops up for S&D distraction, but we get into that a different
I'm
time.
with you.
But maybe we'll be doing something here over at LVT. Shifting back our focus into the roadmap this year, and in particular the format, I couldn't help but notice once again that international teams will have to play from the open bracket. I bring this up because Mexico, in particular, had a top team that made it made it into pool play every event from open bracket, and then also had events where they finished in top 12 positions outside of pool bracket, outside of pool play. So, can you talk about the decision to keep international teams in that open bracket system instead of granting another spot into pool play, especially for the Mexico region in particular?
Yeah, I think first kudos to everyone in that region that still competes and comes out to the events, and kudos to that team that has just been turning heads and kicking butt. I know they surprised a lot of competitors, and it seems like they have a good roster for this year as well. So the decision for us comes to really like competitive longevity at that kind of highest level, and we had just felt like it kind of warranted taking a step back. We still provide travel support, so it's still important to us that the teams are able to attend and they still have a path to go through the open bracket and fight in pool play. So it's certainly not easy path. We know that, but there's still a clear line of sight how they can do that. And again, for us, like we're gonna see how they perform and make decisions as we go. But we felt like we just hadn't quite seen enough to warrant a change.
I guess like my big follow up to that is there a way for that to change this year? So let's say Mexico comes out, they perform really well at Arlington, and they get like a crazy top 8 finish. Does that change the equation for you in your mind of like, oh, maybe Mexico should start getting guaranteed pool play? Or is it more that, well, if you get that high of a finish, you already get your pool play spot. So maybe just finish that high?
Yeah, I mean, we try to take it year by year with these decisions. Like, we don't want to disrupt the kind of pool play format in the middle of a season. However, like if the Mexican team comes out and they get crazy high placement, then it's like, okay, looks like we got that one wrong, you know, and we'll look at kind of making updates. But you're right in that if they do get a crazy high placement, they'll kind of earn that pool play anyway, since there are guaranteed slots for certain teams at lands events. So, again, like we want nothing but all of our teams to be super competitive and whatnot. So if that team kind of earns a spot, and more kudos to them. And ultimately, I think it's good for the overall scene if more teams are competitive. And it's a delicate balance for us too. So we try to be as objective as we can, but it's not a science. And we try to think about how we keep each tournament kind of competitive and fair. Because again, if you're giving one team a pool play spot, then you're taking it away from another. But at the same time, we do want to inspire more people in different regions to compete and feel like they can go to a major and do some damage. So it's a difficult balance, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that we always get it right or are perfect with all of that stuff. So
Um, Speaking about Mexico just a little bit more, just because I think there's a lot of talent in Mexico that have been wanting
mhm.
to break into that next space in the HCS. One of the biggest roadblocks that when I've talked to these players, is the region lock and how they can compete. Right. So in order to compete in North American events, you need to
Mhm.
live within either Canada or the United States, reside there during tournament play, during the online season. This is an opportunity that a lot of players from Mexico can't necessarily capture due to things that are outside of their control. do you think there's an opportunity in the future to open up the region lock, like a soft open, as to like where one player from Mexico could compete with 3 players from North America and have a chance to play in a more competitive scene that has a higher upside for players that have that individual talent?
Potentially. I mean, I'm always open to kind of re-exploring rules, and especially as the scenes evolve and things like that. So I can take it to the team and just re-explore it. Right now, I have no, announcements to make or changes that I can say we're actively exploring at the moment.
I did like the change that you guys made last year where international players could compete with North American teams like at the
Hmm.
LAN events. I just think that's like the next iteration of that. And then obviously people in chat always anytime we bring up the LATAM scene, they always want to talk about Colombia, Brazil, all these other countries that are wanting to get involved. Is there any sort of long-term plan to open up the region lock to outside of Mexico and involving more Central and South America?
Yeah, I think for us, it's going to depend on where our players are. And the reality is that there are just not as many players in those South American countries as there are a bit further up north. And, it's not a insignificant investment to, put on full year face of tournaments for these different regions, and the prizing and operations and flying them out to majors and really having them kind of integrated into the scene. So, it's one of those where if you don't invest, then you won't get anything. But, if there's not a lot, then it's hard to justify the investment. So, I think at this point, 4 years, in year 4, I should say, um, there's not a clear line of sight that I can say that suddenly there's like, oh my God, there's a million Brazilian players who are just like, going to come online out of nowhere, and we got to scramble to support them right away. So I think, in the near future, I wouldn't expect our kind of regional layout to change.
Speaking of
However,
investments,
though,
oh
sorry,
no, go ahead.
good opportunity for HCS Grassroots program support. This is something that we did when the program was first launched. So it's a good way to kind of start to kind of build some momentum. So if there's community groups that are passionate about, running tournaments in Colombia and things like that, it wouldn't be the first time that we've supported tournaments in that way. And it always starts small, but once you build a community, then you can potentially get things kind of rolling.
Actually love that. I would love to see more tournament organizers prop up. I know there are like plenty in Mexico,
Hmm.
but Colombia, Brazil, these countries that keep asking, like I don't think it's too much to say that like you got to put in the work yourself as well, right? Like get more community engagement that way. You spoke about this investment. I think a lot of players felt that they were investing into the HCS in season 1 when they were buying team skins and just things in the shop, and that money was going back and helping crowdfund the prize pool. In year 2, we saw crowdfunding discontinued within the HCS. And it was sort of an open question of whether it was going to come back or not in the future. Is there a status update as to what those plans look like into the future, where crowdfunding is, in your guys' opinion, and what the long-term sightline is for potentially bringing crowdfunding back?
Yeah, I'd say there's no change to the plans. I don't think in the near future we're going to bring crowdfunding back. I think we're not like we don't think crowdfunding is like a bad idea suddenly or anything like that. I think the thing that's important that we don't have for Infinite is just that clear line of sight from, as a fan, this thing that I purchase and how it directly impacts this event that I want to boost the prize pool for. And in the first year we were able to make significant contributions, which I thought was great. But again, as a fan, it's like, okay, I bought this skin. How do I know what percentage is going and which event? And I don't really have choice over, supporting this thing. So there just wasn't this like strong connection. And I think going forward, for us to bring it back, we want to make sure that there is that strong connection and it's a very clear line of sight for fans and where their money is going.
I think that's fair to say. I'm curious as to like what you guys are planning in the future or what you have in place now to sort of give folks that same sort of safety in when they invest, right? Especially with like team skins, right? We know that when you buy a team skin, it goes back to the teams in some sort of way. But I do think there is some obscurity of how that money goes. It travels through those paths. Is it per team? Is it the HCS program as a whole? Like how does that ecosystem work?
Yeah, again, I can't really talk figures and what the teams get and whatnot. But I think what I can say is that, the teams are remaining in HCS because there is this, you know, rev share. So, as you mentioned before, that is a big part of the overall kind of program itself. So, yeah, I can't really kind of share all the details. I guess like, it's a royalties program. So
Mm.
the fans purchase content, and then the money comes to Microsoft, and then Microsoft gives a cut to the teams. So that's I guess the flow of money.
I mean, it makes sense, and it's like I just think people want to have a better idea. I think sometimes there's the question of like, if I buy an Optic skin, is it supporting Optic directly, or is it supporting the HCS program, and then that program directs Optic indirectly? Is like, I guess.
Oh no,
big question.
there are checks that are cut.
Okay, and that
Yeah.
I love that. I love that level of transparency. It just makes it so that we all kind of understand what's happening
Yep.
a little bit more. And going into this next season, I thought that year 3 was a great year as a spectator when you went to events to have opportunities to do more, especially the last 2 events of the year with Space Station Gaming and Worlds. The side tournaments were a great addition. We saw more activations, more boosts. What are you guys doing this year? Is there any additions to that format that we can expect to sort of keep that engagement of players that are going to these tournaments up?
Yeah, so the side tournaments are still going to be a big part of the events. So, if you wanted to compete in more than just the open bracket in Halo Infinite or Halo 5 or even games on MCC, you can expect kind of more of that. And the team has been, I think they did a good job last year too, but just taking feedback and molding the tournaments, changing the pricing structure, the format structure to kind of meet the player needs. So I think you see more of that. We did dabble a bit with 1v1 Showdown, which I think went over really well at the World Championship. So I would say, at least for the first event, expect to see some 1v1 Showdown activation. And then, we're working on S&D extraction. And that's something, as I mentioned, we'd like to bring out to the events. And, it might start with just, hey, come play, give feedback. But I could easily see it evolving to, okay, we're going to run competitions here on 1v1 Showdown, or sorry, S&D extraction. And, there's prizing tournaments and things like that if the scene kind of, is hungry for it and wants to support it. So, we're going to keep seeing what options we have and evolving the experience. And, I don't have any like hard stuff to confirm today, except for, I guess I just did with 1v1 Showdown. But yeah, it's something we're always looking to kind of evolve as we go.
Ring squad battles, folks. Get on Twitter, let them know we want.
Yeah, we
squad
talked
battles
about
tournaments.
this.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm all
we're
for
open
it.
to it.
Let's get it. Even if it's like what I'd love to see added is like a free agency like bubble area. To it's like, hey, I got 2 like show up to events. It's like you can get an email of like all the free agents available. Like start to build like these teams out. 'Cause I think
we talked about that once at events where you could it was like a looking for team kind of area where basically if you're a free agent, you just like hang out there and you're like, oh, we need 1 or we need 2.
I love those initiatives. Like I said, I think the biggest thing for players when they come out to watch events is, 1, they want to watch great Halo. The second is they want to play great Halo, and it's like LAN is the best possible way to play. So more opportunities for people to play is always a great thing. For me, that's my exhaustive list of questions I had for you today, Tashi. Is there anything that we haven't talked about? Any last things that you want to get off your chest before we wrap up here?
No, I think we touched on everything. That was a really fast 2 hours.
Yeah, right.
But no, I guess first just want to thank you guys at LVT for just being such great partners, such great ambassadors to the Halo community, and just all the like effort and even like hard cash that goes into doing what you guys do and being there for the community. So, thank you guys. You guys are an invaluable part to the ecosystem. Go buy those t-shirts, community people. They support them. I bought one. Go get a t-shirt. They look sick. There you go. I was waiting for that, Brandon.
I think
T-shirts are
we
sick.
sold 100 today, boys. So I mean, like we
today?
sold number 100. We sold number 100 today, I should say.
Okay, well, let's go sell like 10 more right now. Come on,
Yeah.
we got a couple thousand in the chat. Head over. I don't know where that link is. Someone spam it in the chat, but you guys are awesome. Thank you guys for what you do. I know the community supports you big time. I'm kind of teasing about the shirts, but really, actually, you should go buy the shirts. They're sick. And yeah, that's kind of it. I'm just I feel like we've had a good kind of start to the year with the Infinite update and HCS roadmap love and new partner teams love and all these new rosters that are so exciting, and people just seem so excited for all this to go down. And we announced SD extraction and the Forge competition. So, let's just keep the good times rolling. Hopefully we have a really great season. Hopefully you guys are really entertained by it all. Hopefully you have fun playing in the ranked playlist, and yeah, let's keep this train going. But like I said, don't take this for granted. I remember saying this to the pros at the kickoff event in Raleigh because Halo Infinite was riding on such a big high, and I just remember like telling them like, don't take this for granted. Like, you are not guaranteed this. No one is promising you this. Everyone in the community has to contribute to keep this going. So, yeah, thank you everybody who has already contributed, still watches, still plays, is excited for S&D extraction, is excited for the season and all this stuff. So thank you everybody for continuing to support HCS and Halo Infinite.
Hey, if you guys are interested in keeping up with Tashi and what's going on with HCS, go check underneath his name right there on screen. He's got his X/Twitter tag. You can follow me as well at the same area. Keep involved with the HCS at HCS. Make sure you follow the YouTube channel for that if you're interested in all the competitions that'll happen at Halo Esports. And of course, as always, subscribe to LVT, follow, and get on the YouTube. We've been doing more over there. We'd love to see more engagement on that as well. That does it.
Big
for
new
us
video,
here.
right?
Yeah, big new video. Go
Sorry,
check it
I
out.
just killed your outro. You were doing such a good job.
It's great.
And
I like it. Plug the video. Guys, did you like it?
He worked hard on editing it.
hard.
He
I
learned
did
a bunch of
work
new editing stuff. Go watch that video. Give it a thumbs up. Leave a friendly comment about the rules for putting together that video.
Thank you. And that does it for us, folks. Until next time. Well, actually, tournament tomorrow. Be here for it. The start of the HCS.
See you there.
Yeah, see you there.